All right, in this video, we're going to take this old painting and swap out the head with this guy from this photograph here. And then I'm gonna run through using the Topaz Studio 2 plugin to give a painting effect to the photograph to make it all kind of blend together. So I'll have links to where you can get all these images if you want to follow along. This is from Unsplash, free stock photo image site, and the old painting coming from Wikimedia Commons. So anyhow, I've already got them open in Photoshop, so I'm going to hop over there. So the first thing I'm going to do is upsize this image, actually quite a bit, because we're going to be applying simulated brush strokes over the top. We can kind of get away with stuff that we wouldn't be able to get away with if it was just regular photo, like photo quality retouching type of thing. All right, so I'm going to go to image size, and I'm fine with leaving that at 23 inches, but I'm going to take that up to 300 ppi, which might be a little too much, but if I was going to have this printed, that would be the resolution that I would probably send to the printer. So I generally like to try to work at the print resolution. All right, so here we go with this guy. I'm going to go ahead and name that original. I'll just abbreviate orig for that layer. So I'm going to duplicate the layer, and first I'm going to go through and kind of do some real quick and dirty sort of restoration, fix some of these like cracks and whatnot in the old painting. So I'm going to do that on this layer I'm going to call rest for restoration. And I'm going to start with the patch tool. So I'm going to go over here to the tools. If you don't have that, it's also in the same little bracket as the healing brush and some of those. So you can always right click on, if you see it as the band-aid, right click on that, go to the patch tool. If you haven't used this one before, I like this one a lot. I'm not going to go through too thoroughly because we're just doing kind of a, like I said, a quick and dirty cleanup here. So I'm going to click and drag a selection, and then I'm going to tell it basically where I want it to gather images or information from. So like I said, and I'll say this a few more times, I'm sure, that's not the best quality if it was going to be a photo, but since we're going to be applying a simulated painting effect over it, we can get away with quite a bit here. So I'm just going to kind of work my way around the edges and fix some of those bits. And just work around. Generally, you get better results if you use smaller increments, but I'm just going to go for it. When used correctly, it can be a really powerful tool. Okay, so I'm just going to get the real nasty ones. I'm not going to dither too much. There we get that one. Yeah, I didn't like what that did, so I'm just going to hit Command Z and Command D to deselect. I might try just smaller little bits. See what happens if I just do. It's not great, but I'll go for it. I didn't like that contamination of the red in there. Yeah, not crazy about that, but do small. Okay, I'll just leave that alone, I guess. And then I'm going to come over here, grab this little guy, some of these chunky bits. Looks like the painting had some kind of a shadow back there. So I'm going to try to grab similar color pieces. Let me grab this guy. And like anything with, touch up or restoration work, you can take forever and get every little bit. I think it's important a lot of times to think about what your end result is going to be. So with this, we're not going for photorealistic, just an improvement. So I'm going to get some of these big ones. I might come back through with the clone stamp tool and fix some of these. And see how that does. It's a little questionable. Okay. I don't know if you're getting bored of this yet, too. So I'm going to try to speed that up. All right. So yeah, I think from here I'm going to go to the clone stamp tool. And that's this little guy here. I just use the keyboard shortcut S to get to that tool. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit and just get some of these little dots. Make my brush a little smaller, a little softer. And I'm going to hit the Option key to select something. And then basically, you see that little, let's select this space here. And then you can see the little crosshairs pop up saying, yep, that's where you're stealing pixels from. So this is one of those things you could go through and like spend hours fixing every little bit. Sometimes with this sort of stuff, I find you can get away with something like, oh, that worked. So I'm going to sample over here, bring that over. And we're going to be using the clone stamp tool again for some other stuff. Ooh, didn't like that. Okay, I'll come from the bottom. All right, just looking for real ugly ones. And maybe yeah, I'm just gonna leave that alone. All right, you can always use like the spot healing brush if I was concerned about some of these like cracks. I can come through and I don't know if that really did it. Anyhow, I'm going to skip ahead. I feel like that's about enough for what I'm trying to do with this one. Let's see what we get. Maybe try one more. Okay, that didn't really do it. All right, let's just do full screen. All right, so you can also, like, from this point, it's a old painting that's sort of faded. You can do things like take that layer and maybe duplicate it and try out something like this. I sometimes go to adjustments and do something like just try out and see what it does for like auto tone. Oh, did not like that. So let's try that again. Image, auto contrast. I don't really see much happen there. So I'll try auto color. I don't like what it did there. So I'm going to delete that layer. What I'm going to do instead is do a color lookup adjustment layer. I tried this one out before, and I think what I liked was the horror blue .3DL. So that did a nice little effect, and then I'm going to kind of bring it down a little bit. I'm going to drop the opacity to about 75, around there. That looks pretty good. All right. So that is where we're starting from. So we were here, and then now we're at this level. All right. So I'm going to take these. What I like to do is kind of just make a ton of layers and then come back through and clean stuff up if I'm going to do stuff that's like a destructive edit. So I'm going to make a composite layer by hitting Command, Option, Shift, and the E key. And then I'm going to take this stuff and put it in a folder, which I'll call Base, for base painting. And now, let's call this one New Base. Okay. So now I'm going to take this layer and I'm going to do, let's see, I think I'm going to do 3 copies. And I'm going to call this one Collar. Call this one Body. And I'll just turn that one off for now. Okay, so what I'm going to do is make a selection of the guy's collar on this layer. Not that. Let's do the quick select tool. So what I'm going to do is use this, and I can lay it on top of the other guy's neck. So I purposely overshot it, and now I'm going to hold down the Option key on a Mac. I think it'd be the Alt key on a Windows. And then come through and deselect that. I have to kind of come back around. All right, so we're going to do this as a layer mask. So that means I can adjust it later as needed. So I'm going to put the output selection to layer mask. Hit OK. All right, so now on that layer we have just the collar that we can edit as well. So I'm going to hide that for now. And then I'm going to come through on the body layer. I'm going to go back to the clone stamp tool. And what I'm going to do is kind of take some of the background and cover up the edges of his head so it gives me a little more wiggle room with the new guy's head that I'm putting in. So I'm going to hold down the Control and Option key on a Mac, and then when I click I can resize the brush really easily. Like that, so I can get a nice big brush that's fairly hard. I'm gonna make a selection over there, and I want to make sure. We'll just do current layer. All right, so I'm gonna Option click. So one of the keys to layer mask or the clone stamp tool is to move is Option click on a bunch of different places, so you're not just copying over all the exact texture. See, like I got a bunch of that stuff, so I might like that. I don't have to totally cover up the dude's head. I just want to get the parts around the outside. Alright, that's good enough for now. Let's see here. So, alright, so I'm going to take the other guy's head. And I'm going to go ahead and crop this down. I want to make sure delete cropped pixels is checked. Now I'm going to, because I upsized the other one, I'm going to go to image size and make this about 16 inches. Basically going to overshoot it. It's a good quality image, so I can get away with some tomfoolery. Alright, so while it's working on that, boom. Got a little bit pixelated and whatnot, like a little digital noise, but I'm not too worried about that. So I'm going to grab this layer. I'm going to take it back to my other document, drop it right in the middle. Wow, I really went for it. So I could, maybe if I was concerned, yeah, it's a little pixelated. I'm going to go back. I'm going to delete that. I'm going to go back here, go to the history. And I'm going to image size. Let's say 9 inches at 300 DPI. Let it do its thing. Now let's see here. Yeah, that's closer. All right, so I'm going to be kind of squeezing that down and bringing it back up and shrinking it down, try to like match the size to where it kind of fits for my eyeball. So in order to not lose all the pixel information every time I make it smaller and then try to make it bigger, I'm going to go ahead and turn it into a smart object. So I'm going to convert to smart object. That way it kind of like keeps it separate. I'm going to lower the opacity a little bit. I'm going to hit Command T to get the free transform function. I'm going to lower the opacity even more. So what I like to do is take one of the eyes and use that as a reference point. In fact, I'll, with this layer at about 48%, I use the corner of the dominant eye, or what I perceive to be the dominant eye. So I'll move that right there. Now I can size it. So by moving the center point to where I want it, I can either rotate it from that center point, the new center point, or I can hold down the Option key and it will, by grabbing a corner, I can move in and out and it references to that little center point that I picked. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring back this one that's the full version of the head. And let's see, I have to do that again. All right, now I'm gonna see how that looks. So okay, that's pretty good for now. So I'm going to, with that part selected, I'm going to go ahead and get one of the selection tools. So I can just do this with the quick select tool selected, I can go up to select subject with that layer highlighted and let it do its thing. And I'm just going to go with that. Like, I'm happy with what it did for now. I'll bring that up. I'm going to say selected mask. Output selection 2. Layer mask. Hit OK. All right. Now that, if I bring the collar, you can see it already starting to look. I'm gonna turn off the snap so it'll allow me to organically move that. I'll say right off the bat, I'm pretty happy with that so far. I'm going to go ahead and highlight the collar layer mask, and I'm going to switch to a brush and switch black to the foreground. Nope. Switch white to the foreground and brush that in. All right. I'll come back around and work on the collar a little bit more. Oops. Let's get that little. But yeah, so if I toggle the face on and off, what I often do is sort of zoom it out and zoom it in. Sometimes when you're too tight in on the image, it's hard to really eyeball it. Right now to my eye, his head looks a little bit too big. So I'm going to try with that layer selected. I'm going to hit the Command T to get the free transform bars. I'm going to hold down the Option key, grab one of these corners. Maybe go a little bit smaller and bring it down and see what I think. Toggle that back and forth. Yeah, that's where we were before. It seemed, I don't know, it's hard to see for me. Sometimes a little trick that I found is to kind of look at it a little bit and then close your eyes, or look at like turn your head towards a wall, open your eyes, let them sort of refocus. And then close your eyes again, look back at the monitor, open your eyes and see. Yeah, that seems all right for me. All right, so we can see behind his head, there's still some of this needs to be taken care of. So I'm going to go back to the body layer, back to the stamp tool. I'm just going to stamp out some of that stuff. All right, let's turn the head back on. Okay, not bad. So now what I want to do is fix around the collar, take care of the glasses there. I'll switch to a different tool. I'll take care of that little spot in the glasses, fix the ear, and then we'll blend some of the colors together. All right, so I'm going to go to the body layer. And what I'm going to do on this one is, because our guy with the glasses has a smaller chin, a little less jowly face, I'm going to, using the clone stamp tool, I'm going to sort of bring this collar out more. So back to the clone stamp tool, I'm going to bring it down, up the hardness a little bit, select there. See what that is. All right, so here it gets a little tricky. So I'm going to highlight the mask, go back to the brush tool, bring it down, and I want to hide some of that. So I'm going to paint in black. I'm going to bring the white back over here. Kind of soften that line from a jagged selection on the like black undercolor. All right, still need to fix this little corner right there, but it's coming along. All right, so I'm going to go to the mask of the guy's face. I'm going to paint in black on that. What is that we're seeing underneath? Is it that? Okay. Oops. So I guess I just need to get some of that. Sometimes I'll even just grab a little bit of that color, sort of paint. I'm not really sure what. Didn't like that though. So go back to the stamp tool. Oh, that's what I'm seeing. Okay, so I'm having a problem with that. It's the collar layer that I need to work on. Okay. All right, there we go. So for me, I don't know. Sometimes I try to stay organized, but sometimes I click on something and then have to kind of figure out what I'm clicking on. All right, so we've got the collar, covered up the neck, face. We got that sorted out. All right, I just want to give it one more kind of look. I feel like the head is a pretty good size. I kind of maybe could make it bigger. After all that work, let's see. I can always undo it if it's not a good idea. How's that? I feel better about that. Let me just see what's going on with the chin. Yeah, it looks pretty good. All right. The other thing I want to do is kind of come in tight. So I've highlighted the mask on the face there. I'm going to come in real tight and try to get that blue out of there. Actually, I'm going to try this. If I can do quick select tool. And then take that selection in here and fill it with black. That's a little rough. I'm not going to do it that way. I'm just going to brush it out. All right. So I go with a B, bring my brush down smaller. I'm going to paint in black here. Big fan of using layer masks. One of the things I just love is that you can kind of purposely overdo it and then just come back through and catch it the other way. Like, for example, if I went too far in there, I can just hit the X key, paint that back. All right. Yeah, that looks pretty good. So now we've got it lined in there. There is a little bit of an abrupt edge there, but that's actually going to work well for the photo layer. I'm going to come in here with a brush and just kind of, oops, undo that, hit the X key, and just clean that part up a little bit. All right. So now I just have to blend the colors of the new face. So what I like to do is I'm going to come down here to the base layer. I'm going to grab the marquee tool. I'm going to make a selection of the old guy's head. So that, and then I'm going to hit Command C to copy it. Create a new layer on top and paste it there. So with the move tool, I can just bring that over. Now I can bring the collar back, bring the face back, and the body. And now I have something that I can look at and really kind of have a reference to try to get the new guy's skin color to match so that it all has a more cohesive feel. So what I'm going to do is start with the curves. So I've got the face layer selected. I'm going to go to curves, and this is going to be quite a bit of like back and forth. So initially I'm thinking I need to darken him. So I'm going to grab just the main one. Oh, so I want to make sure to clip that to just the layer below. So that's what this little icon, this adjustment clips the layer to all the layers below. So it's just going to, that one. Now, if I make an adjustment, you can see just the face changes, but the other stuff stays fine. So, all right, here we go. So I'm going to lower down the overall. It's probably too much, but we can come back. All right, now I'm going to adjust some of the colors. So right off the bat, I want to get this guy to be a little more yellow. So what I'm going to do is come into the blue channel. And see, that's coming in pretty close, but it's getting a little too green. So if I go too far, you can see it turns kind of a green color. But I'm going to start from the middle and just sort of bring it down. And I'm really looking at the skin. See, it's a little too green. Somewhere in there. So if I look at the cheeks and stuff. Now if I just try to take the green out, it's basically going to act as though I just added red back in. So if you watch this, see how the green disappeared, but the face got more red. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to do an additional layer mask just for the hair, so I can grab the green out of the hair. So I'm going to go back over here, curves. I'm going to clip that one down. And then just so I can see what I'm doing, I'm going to drag it way down. I'm going to fill this layer mask with black. So with the mask highlighted. I'm going to hit the Option key and delete because I want to fill it with the foreground color. So then I can come in with the brush tool with the mask highlighted. So I'm going to zoom in here a little bit, switch to the brush tool, make it a little bigger. The nice thing with this is it doesn't matter what I do outside of the hair. I'm going to change that to white. So you can see the background doesn't change. So I can just make a selection around. I just have to be careful at the hairline. That I don't want to go, into the forehead like that. But as long as I'm not weird about the hairline, the outside of the hair doesn't really matter. So I want to soften up the brush here a little bit. So this isn't the hair color I'm going for per se. I didn't like that. All right. Come back in there. So this is just so that I can now go back in here. I'm going to take that away. I can go to green. Ah. Just doing a little light decontamination. All right, so if I do kind of a gray, will allow me to that might not have been a good idea, but we can fiddle with it. Ooh, I kind of like that. Yeah. I'm going to go back in here to the eyebrows. Oops. I'm just going to leave them alone. All right. Oops. I'm not here. I just want to do the green layer. All right. So I'm going to call that layer hair. And let's see. Now I can go back to the curves adjustment for the face. All right. Well, I'm not necessarily trying to get the rougey cheeks in there. Let's see. Okay, just for the purposes of this recording, I'm going to call that pretty good. And let's see how long I'm going so far. "41 minutes. Okay. So let's see. So I guess now what I need to do is some of the painting layers. So I can take that reference face layer and just throw it away. I'm going to put all these in a new folder. Call that composite. And now I'm going to make a layer stamp. So I'm going to do Command, Option, Shift, and E. And then I'm going to duplicate that twice. So we'll call that low, medium, and high. Okay, so now from here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into Topaz Studio and use the impressions filter and kind of work on trying to get it all to look like a painting. So one way that I've done is to just, like I pick paintings that have a fair amount of realism to them to start with and then go from there. And then that way I can kind of like composite it like it's a photograph and then reapply the painting effect to everything. I'm going to try something different this time. This might not be a good idea, but let's just see. If I hit select subject, curious how it'll work with the painting. Now it's on a flat layer, so. All right, I'm going to try output selection to new layer. And hit OK. So this gives me just that. So I'm going to take that into Topaz Studio. I know I lost some of the shoulder over here, but I'm not too worried about that. All right. I've got a preset that I was fiddling around with earlier. So if I take that and apply it back into Photoshop, let's see what we get. So right off the bat, I kind of like what it did there. The edge is a little harsh around the, right there. But I think what I can do is make a composite of that. And then I'm going to take that in and give that a once over. It's kind of a on the fly, trying something different. Let's see how this works. So if I go back in and apply the same filter, that'll like simulate brush strokes around everything. So that is way too soft. Let me have a little blur in there. But what that does is softens up that transition, which I can use. So let's take that back. Okay, so I'm going to apply a layer mask to that by holding down the Option key and hitting the layer mask. So that gives it a black mask. Then what I can do on some of these edges is I can come in with a brush and paint in white. Oops. Basically, I'm painting in the softness of that extra painted layer. Huh, that was interesting. All right, I'm going to put that into a folder and kind of set it aside for now. So I'm going to take those two, call that test. I'm going to hide that. And then, all right, so let me try the old way I was doing it. So I've got my high, my medium, and my low. I'm going to go into Topaz with the, actually I'm going to copy one of these, call it base, and I'll put it inside the test folder at the bottom of the stack. Okay. So now I'm going to take this one into Topaz Studio. So this is a technique I've done another video about, a basic version of this technique, and then eventually I keep meaning to do a more comprehensive one, which I actually recorded, and it was crazy long, and I kind of I got a little weird about it and went too much into detail and took way too long, like practically filled up an external hard drive with the recording of it. So anyhow, I'll try to get back to that one, be a little less obsessed. That's why I'm trying to do this one a little looser. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and apply that. And what I want to do is I'm going to go to the impressions layer, and I want to switch the number of strokes to high. And I still have this blur here, so I'm going to do the mask. I'm going to come to invert. By the way, if you're not familiar with this Topaz Studio 2 software, I'm going to put a link in the description. And this, like, for digital paintings, like turning in photos into paintings, this is the one. It's an affiliate link, but I also put a coupon code down there that I believe saves you 15%. So, anyhow, so I've got a mask applied to the blur layer. So what I'm going to do is zoom in. And this layer we would use just to get some of the like painted details around the eyes. And what I want to do is blur the high contrast of the glasses here. So I'm going to switch the brush to white. I'm going to make it a little smaller. Okay. So if I apply the blur there, you'll see it has to basically re-approximate brush strokes above it. But it makes it more like it was painted, less like I just slapped a photo on top of a painting, which, you know, to be honest, that's what we're doing here. It's like, I feel like the software kind of tries as hard as it can to give you that painting effect. And then at some points when there's just too much contrast, it's almost like the software goes, all right, dude, I'm out. It's just a photograph. But by blurring it, and if you look over here on the right side, it gives you the sort of the layer stack. So we've got the Photoshop image, and then I apply the blur, and then the impressions painting goes on top of that. And you can change the stack order and all that sort of stuff. Oops. Don't do that. All right, so if I go back here, you can see that gave us a little bit more painting-like effect around the glasses. So I'm going to go ahead and accept that, and we're pretty much just going to use this layer for the detail around the eyes and maybe the edge of the nose, stuff like that. So I'm going to hit accept. Sometimes it takes it a while to render. All right, so that was the high level one. So if you look on that stack there, I'm going to add a layer mask. I'm going to hold down the Option key while I do it so it fills it with black. I'm going to highlight this layer. I'm going to go to Filter, Topaz Studio 2. And I'm going to do the same. Wait for it to load. Add look. All right. I'm going to do the same preset. I'm going to close out the blur. I'm going to go medium. And this is going to give us our medium layer of paint strokes. So this is going to be like the bulk of the face. So I hit accept to bring it back into Photoshop. Same thing, I'm going to hold down the Option key. I'll go to Filter, Topaz Studio 2. Okay. So I'm going to apply the same preset. Hide the blur, go to Impressions. Go to low. I like to do a low layer. What that gives you, low number of strokes. I sometimes like what it does with the background stuff. I'm not crazy about what it's doing with this one, but I'm going to go ahead and hit accept. We don't have to use it if it doesn't really work for the final composition. Okay. Sometimes when stuff comes back from Topaz, it gets reduced transparency. I contacted their customer service and they basically finally got back to me after a couple of back and forth and said, oh yeah, it does do that. So anyway, what I do to fix it is I duplicate the layer by hitting Command J. So if you look over here, it's got low copy. So I duplicate it 3 times and then I hit Command E twice to merge those back down to one solid layer. I think technically if I disable this layer mask, yeah, I did it for all those. So I'm going to go ahead and delete the layer mask on that one. Do the same maneuver. I'd kind of forgotten that it was doing that. And I'm going to delete the layer mask on that one. Not disable, but delete. And I'll do Command J, Command J, Command E, Command E. All right, now I'll add the layer mask back. Oops. Let's do that again. Hold down the Option key. Okay. So I got my low level. And then, so I highlight the layer mask on medium, and I can just brush in with white. Basically brush in the painting. And you can see it brings detail back in. Sometimes I'll just make the brush a little bigger and want to get all those paint strokes in on the face. Around the uniform. So I may come back through with the clone stamp tool and fix some of these little white dots that are basically cracks in the original painting. All right. So now if I go in here, I can, on the high layer, I can come in around the eyes and turn the photographishness, if that's a word. I know people like to say painterly in this whole thing of doing digital paintings from photographs. So figure if you can make up painterly, then I can make up photographically, photographishically, or whatever. All right, you know what I'm saying. All right, so, you know, obviously tons of time can be spent on this type of thing, but this is one of those ones where from a distance, it's like, okay, but then as you get in, you can see, oh, look, brush strokes. Well, that's cool. So, yeah. Let's take a look at that test layer. I kind of like that, though. Like all that work that we just did, it softened everything up, whereas that test layer, I think that's the way I'm going to do it from now on. Like that looks like a painting and not just a photograph, but you still retain a lot of the original. I mean, you even got some of the distressed. Huh. Look at that. I know it's annoying. I keep zooming in and out. Sorry about that. Well, anyhow, what I'm going to do is go ahead and sign this beautiful piece of work. So I'm going to add an additional layer on top. Call that SIG. And then I'm going to switch over the brush to my signature brush. You can see it's my name. And so I'm going to stick it down there. So I'm going to pick a nice little contrasting color. Maybe the lighter blue. I'm just going to use the bracket keys to bring this down smaller. Oh, I do not like that color. All right, let's try that again. How about this sort of brown? Okay. Sometimes I lower the opacity on these. All right, so far that's looking pretty good. Now, I'll also, from here, a lot of times I like to do one global curves adjustment on top. Maybe a thing like add a little contrast. Or sometimes I'll do a additional color lookup layer, like we did earlier with the horror blue, and then bring that down 28. I think I like the curves better. Keeps some of the warmth of the image. So yeah, that's it. You can apply that same technique to you know, any head swap that you want to do. So yeah, I hope you found that video interesting. I hope I didn't bore you too much, just kind of rambling. I'm gonna probably do more of these. Just look over the shoulder while some dude, being me, sits there and does Photoshop and talks into a microphone. So if that's something you're interested, check it out. I've also got a lot of other tutorials. I'm working on a whole series of quick tips for Photoshop that are the exact opposite of this. Instead of just, going on and on for, I don't know, an hour and a half, These are going to be where I'm going to try to give the information in as concise a manner as possible. So go ahead and subscribe if that's something you're interested in. If you like this video, hit the like button. Yeah, share it with your friends. You can send me some cash. That's always welcome. Anyhow, man, I hope you enjoyed watching this, and check back later for more content.